Alright, I think it's time to wrap up the spring anime season. What other interesting shows are left? There's Millionaire Detective Balance Unlimited. Okay, a buddy cop with anime Batman. I'm interested. Let me just see how many episodes, and it's delayed. Alright, well, what about Party Ran Man? It's like Wacky Racers, but based in the 19th century, and... oh, it's also delayed. What hasn't been delayed? That's still interesting. Okay, we got radio hosting with Wave Listen to Me, or art with Arte. I can say I haven't seen a historical anime in a long time, so we'll go with that. Yeah, today we'll be scratching the bottom of the barrel for spring shows by doing a review no one asked for, going over Arte. So I hope you'll stick around as we go over its story, characters, music, animation, and general fun fact to see if Arte is even worth your time. Story. Arte Spalletti was a heiress of the noble Spalletti family with a deep love for the arts and painting. However, when her supportive father died, her mother tries to force her to give up the arts in hopes of getting married. Rejecting this future, Arte leaves her house in order to pursue her dream of becoming an artist. However, 16th century Florence is not the most egalitarian society, with many workshop masters rejecting her apprenticeship simply because she is a woman. That changes when she meets Leo, master a small workshop that takes her in due to her tenacity and dedication to the arts. There she learns about painting under his tutelage and sets to prove to everyone that women can make it in an occupation dominated by men. Alright, just from the summary, you might be able to glean the major themes from the show. It's very much a "you go girl" show that seeks to empower the non-existent female weeb. How Arte likes to go about this is, for the first half of the show, to have her be initially rejected by her peers, prove that she can accomplish tasks that even men would have a hard time doing, and thus winning over the approval of her peers with the astonishing ability to deadlift properly. Outside of this, the show tries to be this historical slice of life that explores the day-to-day lives of the artists and the people in the 16th century Italy. That is, until we get into the later half of the show, where Arte becomes a tutor for Caterina, the stubborn daughter of rich noble Venetians. At this point, the show tries to change directions to proving that being different by being a noble and a woman can lead to having better opportunities. As far as the quality of the story goes, what you see is what you get. There isn't anything really deeper than the feminist agenda that plasters all over the place. The historical backdrop doesn't really go any further than what the daily life of the struggling Italian artist is, and though learning a bit about how the Renaissance artists made their paintings was interesting, there wasn't really a whole lot of in-depth explanation for that. Then this is why they are doing this. There isn't really anything offensive about the story, it's just very bland with its execution. You're not gonna learn a lot about the time period or how oppressed women artists were outside of "ew, it's so girl," or even any significant character dramas. Now, if this show was to be more dedicated to being a sort of biography of the real person it was based off,
Artemisia Gentileschi,
then we would have a much more interesting dynamic with the dramatic events of the real person and her real life struggles. But what we get is a fictional PG version of a much more interesting and dramatic historical figure. You might not hate the story, but you're not gonna be too invested in it either way. Characters. Well, this section is going to be short considering there isn't a whole lot of really dynamic characters in the show. Let's start with the lead Arte. She's a young noble lady that seeks to prove her worth as an artist to her male peers by doing incredibly laborious chores and jobs to the point of adversely affecting her health. She is very reckless and has a small smattering of shonen good-hearted protagonist mixed in with her personality. This cannonball is taught by Leo, a master artist that worked his way up from being a beggar to where he is now. A real pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of fellow. Then you have a variety of side characters that pop in and out again, like Veronica the high-class prostitute, Yuri the Venetian noble merchant, and his niece Caterina. There isn't much to explore in the characters for the show, maybe a little bit to how high-class society can adversely affect the development of a young girl, with Katarina as the case study, but the characters aren't exactly what's gonna keep you engaged the whole time. Everything is very surface level, and even when you have some more intrigue with the characters like Katarina, the payoff doesn't really bring much more than what was already presented to us in the beginning. Are these bad characters? Well, mostly inoffensive, but very paper thin. I suppose the fact that I can't say much more than I already have might be a giveaway of how they interact in the story, huh? Music. Alright, I'm gonna get this out of the way. The opening and ending both have riffs that sound exactly like other popular songs, and I'm gonna bring it to light so you can all share my musical escapade. For example, the opening Clover by Maaya and Sakamoto has a rhythm guitar that continuously plays the same riff as Memory from Undertale. Thus meaning that every time the OP plays, I can't shake away the memories of funny skeletons and lovely goat moms. As for the rest of the song, it's pretty typical anime opening J-pop. It's pretty good and develops away from the Undertale theme once we get into the pre-chorus. It features strings that make the experience a lot more grandiose in scale while listening. It's not a bad song by any stretch of the imagination, I just really wanted to point that out. Speaking of pointing out comparisons, the ending track Hare by Kiyono Yasuno is a female vocalist that I swear to God is singing a Japanese cover of Hey There Delilah for the verses, alright? Though again it changes for the pre-chorus and the chorus. The actual instrumentation of the song is very light with its maracas, drums, accordion, acoustic guitar, and strings, which helps to bring a vision much closer towards Italy than OP. It almost reminds me a bit of Bofuri and how the attack of the strings lends a sharpness that melts with rhythmic background instruments. It's great when it embraces this, but it's very hard to separate it from Hey There Delilah until we get to the chorus. It drives me nuts. As far as the background tracks for Arte is concerned, you might think that this being a historical show that it might have instrumentation that represents the time period. So what we get is a soundtrack that's filled with strings, piano, and bells. It is actually pretty soothing OST, with the one exception being the song that plays whenever some sort of potential danger occurs. At this point, it sounds almost like a Fire Emblem Prepare for Battle theme. Overall, music,
that's pretty good.
Animation. With a show about Renaissance and art, it might be expected that the quality of the animation might not be too over the top, but the background art would be amazing, right? Well, at least that's what I thought, but in reality, everything in the animation department is painfully average. The movements are functional, the art isn't especially gorgeous to look at except when they try to copy real historical paintings, and the settings aren't very detailed or pretty to look at, which is a crying shame since this is a show about historical art. You might expect things to at least look a bit more stylized, but in the end it looks like every other show you've seen without anything to set it apart. Its entire being is that of good enough. You're not going to complain about any quirky movements or potentially ugly art, but you're not praising anything either. There's a lack of dramatic movement or any sort of like dynamic reactions, so it really hampers the show a lot. The studio isn't well known, and based off the animation, it's probably a reason for that. Fun factor. With a show like Arte that has a clear theme that it wants to explore with its audience, it is important that you strike a balance between entertainment and moral values. You go over the top with one and you might leave behind the other. In addition, it's also good to sprinkle in some other supporting themes to keep things fresh and engaging throughout the story. Now, Arte is a case where they definitely knew these things to be true, but never went all the way with some of the themes that they laid out for themselves. What do I mean by this? Well, while watching the show, I definitely wasn't engaged with the Arte's struggle to become a recognized artist among her peers, but I felt that the story lacked a certain element to make it a truly gripping drama. It might have needed some sort of physically tangible antagonistic element beyond just sexist society. Additionally, there were other elements of the story that seemed to not take enough time to develop or were just brushed away, like the plot point where Arte had a crush on Leo, or when Arte became Katarina's tutor, at which point the show tried to present her hard work mixed with her being a woman and noble makes her especially gifted. This does conflict with Arte's worldview up until that point, point, and her wishing that she was a boy, but also didn't really have too much of a payoff. Now, if we were talking about the real Artemisia, first we would have to up the age rating, alright? Then we could have introduced a really cool historical drama with, there's a reason we're going to be upping the age, her rape, and how that affects her professional career among her peers in overcoming such a huge personal societal burden. But nothing at that level happens in the show, thankfully, although they have inspired elements from her life to make the plot, and they just didn't go the biographical route. Though this is a bit of a tangent outside of my actual entertainment, I just thought that a more direct interpretation of the past might be more thrilling than what we got. Did I have fun with the show as is? I was mildly entertained the whole way through. I never wanted to stop and watch something else, but I wasn't too immersed in the story either. Conclusions. Arte is a show that was thrown to the bottom of the barrel because it never had anything too impressive to show the world. Many of its themes were done much better by other shows, and being average doesn't turn many heads. Averaging all of our scores, we come to a final score of 4.9 out of 10. You can skip over this show with the confidence that you're not missing too much. For alternate recommendations, if you want more thrilling historical drama, complete with deep look into such trades and occupations, perhaps Spice and Wolf would be a great fit. If you're looking for something more laid back, slice of life, and chock full of societal themes, then give Violet Evergarden a shot. Thanks for watching. This is going to be the last anime review I do for a bit, as I feel like I've reviewed all the major shows from the spring season. With the summer season still in full swing, I'm going to be doing a couple extra special projects I've wanted to do for a bit, so the next video might take longer than a week to produce, but be sure it'll be worth it. So until then, I'm Zeosphere, and I make regular anime content. Subscribe if you like me and want to find out what I've been cooking, comment below what you thought of Arte, leave a like if you liked the video, and don't forget, stay cultured.